In this video, I'm going to examine the testimony of Samuel Rajzman at the Nuremberg Trial. Rajzman was one of only 2 people from Poland to give evidence at the trial, thus becoming the only survivor from Treblinka to do so. In this video, you will hear his testimony in full with nothing left out, and at the same time, you will see what Treblinka looks like today. The memorial was built at Treblinka in the 1960s, and thus the layout of the land has changed a great deal. Furthermore, it's now more heavily forested than it was then. We can see this from aerial photographs from the period of the war. Remember that the stones that you see at this memorial represent whole communities, which could be tens of thousands, or in the case of Warsaw, hundreds of thousands of lives. Samuel Rajzman was born in Węgrów, which is roughly equidistant between Warsaw and Treblinka. He worked before the war as an accountant and translator in an export firm. He lived in the Warsaw Ghetto with his wife and daughter during the Nazi occupation. On the 21st of September 1942, he was deported to the Treblinka death camp. Upon arrival at Treblinka II, he was treated like all deportees. He was forced to undress and driven towards the gas chambers. He'd already removed his clothes and was being marched along with approximately 8,000 Jews from Warsaw towards what was called the Himmelfahrtstrasse, the street to heaven, leading to the gas chambers. At this moment, he was recognized by engineer Marceli Galewski, an old acquaintance of his from Warsaw, and who by this time was the Jewish labour supervisor in the death camp. Rajzman was noted for his language skills and had done some translating work in the past. Because the camp needed someone who could interpret in Hebrew, French, Russian, Polish and German, Galewski identified him to the Germans as a candidate interpreter and secured permission to remove him from the group on its way to be murdered. This intervention saved his life. Rajzman was placed in the camp's labour detachment. His first task was loading the clothes of murdered victims onto trains. 2 days after his arrival, his mother, sister and 2 brothers were brought to Treblinka. He saw them being led to the gas chambers. Days later, whilst workers were loading clothing, his comrades found documents and a photograph of his wife and child confirming their deaths and leaving him with the only surviving memento of his family. He remained in Treblinka for 1 year, until August 1943. During this period, Rajzman became very familiar with every aspect of the camp's killing process. At Nuremberg, he stated that between July and December 1942, Treblinka received an average of 3 transports daily, each with 60 cars. In 1943, the frequency decreased. Typically, 3 to 5 trains of Jews arrived each day from Czechoslovakia, Germany, Greece and Poland. Victims were forced to leave the train within 5 minutes, separated by sex, beaten with whips and made to undress. The process from undressing to reaching the gas chambers took 8 to 10 minutes for men and about 15 minutes for women because their hair had to be shaved. The shaved hair was used to make mattresses, he was told. Jews from nearby villages didn't come by train, but by trucks, and the trucks had a sign saying Expedition spare transport. At Treblinka, there was a fake railway station. Initially, the station bore no signage. Later, Deputy Commander Kurt Franz constructed a false first-class station with signboards saying restaurant, ticket office, telegraph, telephone, and fake departure schedules to Grodno, Suwałki, Vienna and Berlin. This deception calmed arrivals long enough to prevent panic and ensure smooth movement to the gas chambers. Rajzman estimated that 10 to 12,000 people were murdered every day. At first 3 gas chambers existed, 10 more were added later. When Rajzman asked why so many were needed when there were no more Jews, he was told, "After you there'll be others, and there's still a big job to do." Treblinka was sometimes called Obermaidanek. Once its true purpose became widely known, a large sign with this name was openly displayed, presumably so people didn't think that they had been taken to Treblinka. Rajzman at Nuremberg describes specific acts of brutality. There was a lazaret, which means field hospital, but this was a killing site. It was supervised by Scharführer Menz, who insisted on performing all shootings himself. Weak women, elderly people and children unable to walk to the gas chambers were taken here. A 10-year-old girl and her 2-year-old sister were brought to the lazaret. As Menz prepared to shoot the younger child, the elder sister threw herself upon him, begging him not to kill her sister. Menz threw the 2-year-old alive into the smouldering fire that destroyed the unwanted baggage of the victims and sometimes the bodies of those killed in the lazaret, and then shot the older child. An elderly woman with a heavily pregnant daughter were forced onto a grass plot. The Germans watched the woman labour for 2 hours. After the birth, Menz asked the grandmother which of them she preferred to die first. She begged to be shot first. Instead, he killed the newborn baby, then the mother, and finally the grandmother. Rajzman identified Kurt Franz as the biggest murderer in the camp, after Commander Stangl. Rajzman also recounted Franz's murder of an elderly Jewish woman who said she was Sigmund Freud's sister. She begged for light office work. Franz pretended to examine her documents, directed her to leave her belongings, bathe and return to receive a ticket for a supposed train to Vienna in 2 hours. She entered the bathhouse and never emerged. I've done separate videos on Kurt Franz as well as the murder of the sister of Sigmund Freud, and there'll be links below and in the description. Rajzman was one of the organisers and participants in the uprising of the 2nd of August 1943, commanding a group of fighters. During the revolt he escaped from the camp. Because he came from nearby Węgrów, he knew the terrain. He joined a group of Jewish people who were hiding, but the group was discovered and they were murdered. He survived only because he was out searching for food at that moment. Eventually, he reached a farm whose Polish Catholic owner hid him along with 2 other Jews, at risk to his life and that of his family, and they stayed there until the Red Army arrived. In 1944, he met with other Treblinka survivors at their first gathering. After the war ended, he became personnel director of the Central Committee of Liberated Jews. Rajzman testified at the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg as the only witness from Treblinka, and one of only 2 Polish witnesses, the other being Seweryna Szmaglewska of Auschwitz-Birkenau. His testimony made a profound impression and could have been one of the most important moments at the trial. He never returned to Poland, as his wife and daughter had been murdered. He settled in Paris and in 1950 emigrated to Canada, where he remarried, opened a business and lived in Montreal. He testified again at the 1964 to 1965 Treblinka trial of Commandant Kurt Franz and others held in Dusseldorf. He testified once more in the 1969 to 1970 trial of former Treblinka Commandant Franz Stangl. That was held in Dusseldorf also, and that followed Stangl's extradition from Brazil. In 1978, he testified in Fort Lauderdale in Florida, USA, in the denaturalization trial of Fedor Fedorenko, a Soviet guard from Treblinka. Fedorenko lost his US citizenship, was deported to the Soviet Union in 1984, sentenced to death, and executed in 1986. Samuel Rajzman died in Montreal in 1979, aged 72. Thank you very much for listening to this video. I've also published a number of videos related to the Holocaust and to Treblinka, as well as Holocaust perpetrators, as well as their victims. I upload every day with a shorts video, and there are documentary style videos like this on Tuesdays and Fridays. I always upload at 2000 hours Central European time, as I live in Poland and in Germany. I sometimes do live talks too. For example, I have a live talk on the Treblinka Uprising, a link to which you'll find below. I try to be present when the videos premiere, which gives you a chance to chat in real time with me and other users. These videos feature original research as I can speak various languages. I also offer channel membership, which costs £5 or €6 or $6 per month, and which gives access to currently over 800 videos which are for members only. So if you're interested in real researched history made from the locations where these things happened without the use of sensationalized language or artificial intelligence, then this is the place to be. For the moment, bye for now.